Welcome to Gotta Run. This is Will Sanchez. Thank you for tuning in. My special guest today is Elizabeth Corkum. She runs for Queen's Distance, and she is a coach for Precision Run, a recent addition to the New York City running community. I'm honored to have Coach Corky, as she's better known, as my guest.
Truly, I'm happy to be back.
Yes, you are back because the last time you were here with Juan Becerra and Peter Charles and Ruth Mantilla, and we talked about predictions and theories about the Game of Thrones that was going to be the final season. We just closed. So let's hear your take. What was your takeaway of the final season?
I think it's hard to stick the landing with a show that was so good. I feel like when they started, it was something that no one had ever really seen before. The production value and from a cinematic perspective, what they were able to do in the final season and all the way through was just really spectacular. I think it became really obvious where the books haven't kind of taken the show yet, and where artistic liberties from the producers and directors kind of played in. I felt the last two seasons weren't nearly quite on par with all the seasons preceding it. I recently rewatched the whole series. It's just so good. There's so many great characters and conflicts, and it's just so beautifully shot. But I feel like the final season was rushed. I feel like the pacing did not reflect the pacing that had happened in the first or the third season, for example. So while the conclusion is something I'm relatively satisfied, I think people would never have been satisfied with the ending because a lot of us didn't want it to end. Including the author, George R.R. Martin. He wanted the show to go for 10 seasons. It went for 8. Right.
And yes, you pointed out the first few seasons were great because it was based on his books. The last 2 or 3 seasons, because George is notoriously late in delivering the books. The books aren't here yet. The final 2 books. There's 2 more books to go. So the good news is if you really, really want to learn how George R.R. Martin sees it, the books will be coming out and you can read it.
Hopefully. Let's hope he writes them faster than some of the other things out there. Yeah, and I feel like it was a bit of a disservice that a lot of the actors weren't kind of clued in a season or 2 ago as to what their character arc was. I feel like Emilia Clarke is such a fantastic, expressive character.
She played Daenerys.
And just a lovely human being in all of her interviews. I don't personally know her, but she just seems like a real down-to-earth person. And I don't think that her character was given the opportunity to really have that evolution and progression the way that the audience needed it to happen. I think it felt very rushed. I totally saw her becoming the Mad Queen, and I wanted her to. I think based on how things were going, it just made sense for her and her history and how her character had been affected and just what her progression had been. But I don't think they did the show or her character justice by leaving her kind of in the dark as an actor.
You're right. I think part of it, they were so worried about leaks.
Yeah.
So they kept it as long as possible a secret. And some of them wouldn't read the ending until they got to I guess they call it the table reading, and they read it together. Yeah. I think Kit Harington, who plays Jon Snow, discovered how the ending was, and he apparently just broke down in tears. Was there 1 or 2 characters that really got justice in your opinion?
I do feel like the end of Varys was exactly what it should have been. I feel like it was one of those endings, one of those character arcs where there were clues about if you betray me, this or that, or if you say something to my face, all those things that Dany had kind of dropped in the last couple of seasons. And I feel like the showrunners were very good about actually seeing that totally through. While there are other things I feel like they kind of could have done more with, I feel like Varys' arc was exactly as it should have been.
Yes.
I feel like Tyrion had an interesting arc, and I feel like it was good to see him kind of come out on top, because he's kind of been good and bad and he's very human. They've never tried to make him just one thing. I felt very dissatisfied by clues and hints that have been kind of dropped, but then weren't really followed through on.
Oh, like Danny being pregnant.
Like that, things being said, like they're, when the wolves are together, they survive, and when they're not, they don't, essentially. I'm totally paraphrasing. And then in the end, it's like, okay, great, all of the Starks are now going in totally different directions. So they're separating.
3 quarters of the world. Because
the whole progression of everyone learning about Jon being a Targaryen, and then it was totally dropped. It was never mentioned really in the final episode. It never changed anything. It was such a big part of the story of who is he, who is his parents, what's his identity. And then, you find out he's a Targaryen, and then it's never really concluded, I guess. I don't know.
Because he didn't want it.
Yeah.
He was a conflicted person. His whole mission there was to kill the love of his life. What a terrible emotional cripple he's going to be for the rest of his life, in my opinion.
Yeah. See, what I loved about that scene before he does stick the knife in her is he gave her opportunities. He gave her opportunities to just make it seem like she wasn't going crazy, to make it seem like she wasn't going to kill people. And she took the bait and took the bait and took the bait. And I think he was like, if I don't do it, humanity is doomed, essentially.
Right.
And, I think it was something he really didn't want to do, but very much like Ned Stark, that having to do the right thing, I think he would not have been able to live with himself if he hadn't done it,
Yeah, the consequences, if you thought about it, and he did, were terrible. He was probably worried about his sister, Sansa, who was not going to bend the knee, and he was going to obviously wipe out the North if they didn't. Anyway.
Yeah.
It ended. It ended on the upbeat for the Starks.
Yeah.
Arya went off west. Jon Snow went off with the wildlings, and maybe 10 years from now they'll do a reunion.
You never know. What I did love, and which I'd recommend anyone watch that they haven't already, HBO does have a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff about how they have filmed the season this time around. I think there's things from the past too, but especially in the Belle episode, when they show how they filmed that with the CGI and the technology and the stunts and everything, it's so amazing. It's so well done. And you can see just no detail went unnoticed. It's really incredible. So if you are bitter about the ending or feeling that it was rushed, I recommend looking at that, because I feel like it does kind of make it a bit more satisfying as a fan just to see what goes into something that was so spectacular to view.
Well, I think we covered Game of Thrones, but you really are a running coach. We introduced you as Coach Corky. So Coach Corky is a company as well. So you are a personal coach. Walk us through what a personal coach does. For example, suppose a person comes to you and says, I'm an older runner. I used to run, but I've been out of commission for the last few years because of injuries. And, I really want to come back and really enjoy running a 5K. And I can barely run a mile now. So, those are the parameters. That person says, Coach Corky, help me. So what do you do?
Usually I get those inquiries via email. And so I send an email response thanking them and giving them a little bit of information as to if they need a training plan, kind of how I work, what platforms I use, what support they can expect from me as part of me being their coach. A breakdown of my fees, a breakdown kind of how I communicate, and if they would like to chat more on the phone or shoot me questions via email, great. Sometimes I hear back. Sometimes I don't. It's very easy to send an email shopping around. It takes the integrity to kind of bite the bullet and say, okay, I'm going to do that 5K. I'm going to go back into running. And so from there, we set up a meeting. I send them some forms to fill out so that I can get to know them. For somebody who's coming back from injury, I'd want to know about their injury history, the nature of the injury, what have they done since then? Are they in PT? Are they medically cleared to run? What their running background was before the injury. Kind of get some clues as to maybe what contributed to it or what contributed towards their success in the past. We're all very different athletes. And then also, what have they been doing since then, if anything? And then we kind of go from there. Think about those goals, look at a calendar, make sure that it's a timeline that makes sense. If we're starting at zero, it takes time to build back safely. Our body adapts to stress, but we need consistency, we need rest. My priority is making sure that we don't take a step backwards. It's not worth taking one step forward to take 5 steps back. And so then from there, based on all their information, we figure out what they need. Sometimes it's simply a training plan. And I'll design a personalized one for all my runners. I usually update it a week at a time. I use a platform called Final Surge. I give what I can to support that athlete. Sometimes it'll mean meeting them in person and leading them through workouts. A run in the park, for example. Sometimes it'll be helping them with a strength training routine. Other times it's that I'm pretty much just coaching them from behind a computer and checking in and helping them with their progress. And it's really a two-way street as far as communication goes. I find I coach best and my athletes get the most out of it when they communicate with me and we start to build a rapport and a relationship, and I get to know kind of what they need mentally and physically and how they're adapting, so that I can constantly be making adjustments to their training to then get them to that ultimate goal, feeling healthy and strong and rested and capable of that achievement, whatever it is. So the 5K is a great example. Sometimes it's the marathon, sometimes it's things between it, but every runner is different. And what I love about what I do is that, first off, it never gets boring because each runner is different physically and mentally and with different goals. But also I get to take somebody on a journey from somewhere they are to somewhere they want to be. And sometimes the goal is simple. Other times it's very complex. And sometimes there's one big goal, but there's going to be a lot of little mini goals that are going to help get them there too.
Okay.
And it's always about my runners. It's not about me. I always check ego at the door because I find running is such a special, personal thing. And I want to make sure that it's always what that runner needs and wants.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so every journey with every athlete's really different.
It is. And it has to be customized. And sometimes surprises come up and says, oh, you're much better than you really realized, talking about the runner that wants to come back. Yeah. And sometimes maybe their history is not going to be the same. You're going to be slower now. You sort of have to accept it. But having a good coach can pay a lot of dividends. Gets you out the door.
Yeah, and sometimes, it's tough knowing how much should I be doing, what's too much, what's not enough, how do I balance my recovery, how do I supplement or support my running with other activities. It's very, very challenging. And I know that because I've been self-coached for a long time, and I just this week gave the reins to somebody else for the first time. It's really tough when you're in your body to also be the mind away from your body, looking at the big plan and making those adjustments.
Okay. Coach Corky, if I might call you that.
Sure.
Let's go back to the beginning. Tell us where you were born and something about your growing up years.
I was born in Connecticut, Bridgeport, which is not usually what most Connecticut residents want to use as their example of Connecticut, but there you have it. And I was, though, raised outside of Philadelphia on a Christmas tree farm from the age of about 3 until I moved to New York about 10 years ago. So I was an outdoorsy kid, always dirty, riding a tractor, playing with animals. And so I love being outside. So running for me is just my time to be in nature and breathe air and get some sunshine.
Okay. Did you go to college?
I did. I went to college for music. I went to Westminster Choir College in Princeton. So I would sing at the Lincoln Center with the Westminster Symphonic Choir.
Oh, so you were a singer?
Yeah. A different lifetime ago now. It was something I really loved. It was a real passion of mine, but it's a really tough industry. I don't have to tell anybody that. And after pursuing that and acting for a long time, I was burning out. I did not want to ever resent the arts. I think that they're very special. And I started really gravitating towards running. I was coaching part-time at the time, and I began really looking forward to coaching others more than I did going to an audition. And I realized maybe it's time to kind of shift the balance a little bit and see how that feels. And so in 2013, I think it was, I established Coach Corky Runs LLC, went through the whole process of what that's like to start your own business. And it was a real labor of love.
Okay.
I give credit to the acting hustle because I'm asked all the time by people who want to be running coaches, how do I do it? What do I do? And there is no blueprint. And if you want to do it, you got to take it by the reins and really think about your brand and how to get there. I have a degree in musical theater. I have a bachelor's in music. I have no business background. It's taken a lot of time and investment on my own part to figure out how to get there. I've stumbled along the way. I have been hustling hard at times, up at 4 a.m. when I wouldn't get home till 11 p.m. from coaching somebody else. I would never say it wasn't worth it. It was worth it for me.
You're still doing it, so
yeah, for
obviously-
somebody else, that may not be the lifestyle. It is not as cushy as it looks from the outside.
What you're saying is you got to put the time in. It's not going to be an overnight success.
1,000%.
But you also, I didn't know you were such an artistic person, but you also modeled as well. Were you an athletic model?
Yeah, for a long time I wasn't. I was trying to fit a mold that I wasn't, which is, I think, part of why the acting, modeling world can be not so great for your self-worth. And when I started running more and more and my body type was changing, I realized that I had a natural fit then with doing fitness modeling. So if and when I do model now, which I still do, it's now in running gear. It's no longer in streetwear or anything formal. And it feels like a natural fit. And it's like art imitates life and vice versa. And I have to say, at 35 years old, I also don't self-destruct anymore about measurements or what I look like. It's kind of like I look like I do because of training for what I love, and then so be it, versus trying to fit a mold that an agency or an industry wanted to put me in. And, either I was thin enough one way, but then had too much muscle in one way. And it's just exhausting to feel never enough. And I feel like as an athlete, I am enough when I run and when I race and when I train. And then if I'm good enough for modeling for Saucony or Asics or something, that's just bonus at this point.
Great. That's great. So you've gone through a lot of growth, both personally and athletically, and in so many ways.
So much growth.
and you're only 35, so you don't really you don't hit your peak till you're 50.
I hope so. I hope I have a really solid 15 years ahead of me.
You do, absolutely. But I introduced you as a member of Queen's Distance.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Oh, they're a lovely group of people. And Kevin Montalvo is a great recruiter. And I met Kevin in 2016 at a 5K. And I think I finished maybe like a second female or something. And he comes over as Kevin, and I swear he's going to be a politician at some point in time. It's a matter of when and how. Introduces himself, and at the time I was in Central Park track gear. And it was like recruiting out of the gate. And I was like, no pressure, but you should really come to Queen's Distance. Because
you live in Queens, or?
Because I live in Queens, because I think he thought I'd be an asset for the team, because I wasn't feeling 1,000% rah-rah on board with the team I was on. And it's Kevin. Kevin is one of the most energetic, charismatic people I've ever met.
He was here.
I know.
Bouncing up and down that chair.
I know. I train on my own a lot. I don't really partake in a lot of team practices, and that's been true for years. And so I really didn't have any reason to stay where I was team-wise. And I realized that Kevin and the crew around him, Maria, Edwin, and the team they've created is such a supportive, diverse community, truly, in just every shape and form, that it just felt like a real authentic New York running club experience. And so it's been a pleasure and an honor to be wearing gold since December 2016.
And it is an incredible team. I had Maria Wong here. Didn't realize they're 800 strong. And only in like 5 years.
But that is a testament to the people behind it, truly. And they welcome and support anyone and everyone, despite the fact I was recruited, perhaps for speed. They welcome anyone and everyone, regardless of experience, regardless of pace, age, gender, size, where you live. You do not need to live in Queens. And right now, New York has so many teams. It's kind of it's kind of oversaturated, right? Like there's so many teams out there that I think it goes to show that Queen's Distance is something special.
Oh.
To be that large and have athletes that aren't jumping ship to go to the new thing. We're happy where we are. We love who we represent. And history, that's the history of it there.
All right. Now, we also introduced you as a New York City just opened up Precision Run. It's been around for a while, but this is the first running studio in New York City, founded by David Seek.
Yeah.
The founder of Precision Run. I've been doing precision running at Equinox, and I've done it now twice at the studio. It's very, very different at the studio because it's geared for precision run. But before we hit that, you were a long, long time member of one of my other favorite running club, the Mile High Run Club, which I think truthfully can say they really put treadmill running on the map for New York City. Because before them, there wasn't a place where you can go strictly for treadmill running. How did you complement your personal coaching? Now you're coaching, and it is true coaching, in front of a studio of people, of runners on a treadmill.
It's so weird. I have no idea how I went from coaching in a park to being on a headset. First off, I am not a group fitness person. I have never taken a Barry's class. I've never taken an Orange Theory class. I'm an old school runner. Like, I run outside, I go to the gym, I lift on my own. I am not part of the drinking the Kool-Aid crew with that. And so it's very funny that I've now been considered a group fitness instructor for over 4 years. When Mile High opened in fall 2014, there was a New York Times article that went out about it. I had no idea about it until people were sharing it on Facebook. And it was runners like myself, who are tried and true outdoor runners, that were sharing it. And they were negative about it. They were judgy. They were skeptical. I saw the article. I read it. And I thought they were onto something. And so that day, I Facebook stalked Deborah Warner, the founder. I sent her a direct message and I said, hey, I'm a running coach in New York. I see you just launched. I don't know if you need any more coaches. Could I send you my resume? And the rest is history. I was new to being on a headset, new to dealing with a clock, new to dealing with group fitness. But I think my background in acting made me very comfortable in the headset. Hearing my own voice did not terrify me. Knowing how to project in a healthy way was not strange to me. And so in some weird way, coaching in the studio has been the marriage between outdoor coaching and being on stage. And it's one of those things where no matter what kind of day I'm having, no matter what's going on in my personal life or in the state of the world, I'd put on that headset, and for me, it was like putting on my wig or putting on a costume to go on stage. I would just click into a role, and the performance would be what it had to be every time.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And don't forget, and you also had to be a disc jockey. The music was very important.
Yeah. I went into that, first off, terrified, because it was uncharted territory for me. I am not a group fitness person. I was wondering for myself and for the runners that were going to walk through that door who are outdoor athletes, how do I not sell this, but how do I sell this? How do I sell treadmill running as something that actually is good? How can I convince athletes that their training outside can be supported by what we do inside? Because it absolutely can. And I would not have joined the coaching roster there if I thought it was garbage, if I didn't actually think it was good. And I hated the treadmill. I absolutely despised the treadmill. I'd be out in like snowstorms as my alternative to going to a gym before Mile High. I was at Mile High. I joined them then. They opened in November. I joined them that first week in January. And I was on the roster there for 4 years and 4 months. And I coached thousands of classes. I've seen thousands of athletes come through that door. Olympians, celebrities.
John Henwood is one of their Olympians.
Yeah.
Among others.
Yep. and people who are also terrified of running and have never done it before, who are petrified of it. And I love having those people in my class because I want running to be fun. I want it to be accessible. And unlike a lot of, as I understand, the other group fitness studios can be, I want it to be about them and their journey, not about a calorie burn, not about racing their neighbor, not about what their speed is in a comparative way to the person next to them, but actually have it be about them. And I'm so fortunate to do what I do. I was recruited back in October, 6 months ago.
Okay, 2018.
About a treadmill studio that was opening. I was not given any information other than it's going to be a big thing, and they want me. I felt very humbled. I didn't know who it was. I didn't know.
You probably thought it was Peloton.
Peloton was already out. I knew it wasn't Peloton. But so I was intrigued, but I also wasn't totally sold on leaving where I had been for so long. And then this past January, the connections were made, and then I was on the phone with David Seek. And I have to just make sure it's clear for everybody out there, myself and everyone in Mile High, he never once tried to poach me. He, out of the get-go, said, look, I would love to have a dialogue, but if you are 1,000% happy where you are, best of luck. Hopefully I'll meet you at some point in time. You should feel honored that you're on my short list. But I don't want to pull you from something that you love doing. And I said, thank you so much. I'm kind of actually interested in a change. And so he said, okay, great. We want you. And here we are. I mean, we opened 6 days ago. Officially.
I was there for one of your previews.
Yeah.
You were kind enough to post on Facebook, on Queen's Distance. You're doing a preview. You wanted a live audience. So it was part of your first live audience. And that studio is magnificent. The blue lighting, the air conditioning. You finally, a studio finally got it right because there are no fans, vibrating on you. And of course, it's the high-end woodways.
It takes the traditional woodway that Mile High and Barry's and a lot of gyms have to a new level. It was just unveiled last week. It has been designed by David with woodway specifically for us.
And I love that screen.
Yeah. Nobody else can and will ever have that treadmill.
I did it again after you with David. David C. came back and he did a Sunday, this past Sunday. And I think the room was fully oxygenated because I couldn't believe it. I was running 25 to 30% faster than I normally did inside the studio. So it's one of the secrets in that studio. Is the air compressed or richly enhanced?
It is. We have a filtration system. And I believe it's the only one out there because, again, David is a scientist first and foremost. It's New York City, first off. Air quality is important. In a studio, when you have bodies sweating and breathing heavy, gases are emitted, air quality changes. Not only is it about the temperature or about the humidity, it's about the air quality and what you're breathing in. So we have a system in our studio that keeps it level all the time, whether there's 34 bodies in there.
The maximum.
Right.
Plus the instructor, so that's 35.
There you go. Whether it's 34 bodies and it's the first class of the day, or it's 34 bodies after 3 classes, that air quality is consistent, it's pure, it's the best you can possibly get no matter what.
It makes a big, big, big difference. And the blue
Absolutely.
lighting as well, and you don't have to worry about, in the other studios, you got to wear a headset because you're competing with everything else. Here, you're not competing. You're competing against yourself. And David was beautiful. First time I seen David in action. And I think one of his secrets is he makes it fun. One of the things about running, you like the camaraderie. He brought camaraderie into it because, you knuckle the guy next to you. And so you had some interaction with your neighbor. And that was good. So David was really personable. And everybody had a great time. So this is a winning formula of how it's done. Oh, the other thing that I liked when I was at Mile High Run Club, when I walked into that studio, they knew my name. I said, it was like cheers.
Yeah.
And that is very important, that your front staff is also into it as well. It's very, very important. You know, some of them I think are even instructors, or become instructors later on. And maybe they're interns or they're in training or something because they see you guys are inspired. Because you are the first in New York City. So I call you a founding coach in the sense that this is the first precision run in the city. Yet we have one in California, we have one in Boston, we have one in London. But this is New York. This is where the action happens. If you make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Coach Corky.
Yes.
Any final thoughts?
Running keeps evolving. Technology keeps changing. And I encourage those who are skeptical, those who have never run before, and those who are like me and are tried and true outdoor warriors to come give Precision Run a try. It is the most scientific program out there. It's safe. It's incredibly challenging. And when we continue to open ourselves up to possibilities, we learn and adapt and change and grow. Even if it's that, hey, I'm cool, I never need to run in a studio again, the odds are good runners are going to walk out that door learning something, or learning something about themselves they didn't know before, or meeting another runner that they can run with. You just never know where this world's going to take you. It's such a small industry. It's such a small city, which sounds silly to say it. I'm excited to take my training in there as well as outside. And I just feel very blessed to be able to do what I do.
Coach Corky, thank you so much for dropping in.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.